Hello ladies and gentlemen, Big Daddy Top Hat here. In the past on this channel, we have taken in-depth looks at all of the arcade and home console games that were created using the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles license during the prime days of the franchise's popularity. Turtles video games were some of the best selling around during the late 80s and early 90s, and their impact on the world of gaming is fondly remembered today. Every entry in the series was novel and brought quirks to the table worth celebrating, even years after this era of the Ninja Turtles has ended. But what if I told you that despite these games being released many years ago, that recently a brand new game has surfaced that pulls many of these classic elements together to deliver a spanking new yet familiar radical experience. Today we are going to look at Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles' answer to the amazing Streets of Rage remake, a fan game that would marry up core stages and features from every classic Turtles game ever made, to attempt to deliver the best Turtles experience yet. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the mad story of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Rescue-Palooza, a game that in many ways is better than the originals. Yeah! If there is one thing that has been abundantly made clear with gamers over the last decade or two, it is that many of us continue to pine for the glory days of the 8 and 16-bit eras, or golden age of the arcade. This means that in today's world, new video games are regularly released that cater to such a market. But back in the days when big tech were yet to identify such a gap, it was solely up to fans and indie developers to deliver experiences that would give gamers a break from the usual Xbox and PS2 modern nonsense. In 2003, Senile Team would give us Beats of Rage, a fan-made tribute game to Streets of Rage that supplants the original graphics and characters with resources taken from the King of Fighters. To Senile Team's shock, their free-to-play game would quickly be downloaded over 1 million times, despite news of the game only spreading by word of mouth. The game demonstrated early on how hungry gamers have become for beat-em-ups of old, with the AAA games industry completely ignoring the genre as if it had never existed, nor been popular in the first place. Beats of Rage would lead to the existence of software that would change the world of beat-em-ups forever, with the eventual release of Open Beats of Rage, an open source continuation of the Beats of Rage engine that allows fans and developers to make their own beat-em-ups and even games from other genres. After continuous refinement, today Open Bore is often advertised as the ultimate 2D engine and the most powerful 2D sprite-based engine in the world. The royalty-free software would open the door for all sorts of possibilities, along with various new games and fan projects. Merso X, a dedicated Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles fan, whose game we shall be providing coverage on today, was one of the many people who would discover and utilise the wonders of Open Bore. During the past few years, he has developed several retro-styled video games for the PC, but it is of course his Turtles work that we are focusing on and showcasing today. Merso states that his original root inspiration behind such a project comes from playing Super Mario All-Stars when he was younger. This was the first time for him and many others where he would see an 8-bit video game get a re-release with music and graphical updates. Ever since that day, he dreamed of seeing every NES game receive a SNES-style do-over. This would many years later lead to Merso using Open Bore to begin to create a 16-bit looking remake of the NES game Turtles 3 The Manhattan Project, then later Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2. But eventually, this would all become something much bigger and more ambitious. Rescue-Palooza. Early on in this process, he notes that for characters that appeared in the original NES games, like the Turtles themselves, he would take the original sprites and recolour and edit them in Photoshop. This painstakingly meticulous process was key in maintaining the integral look and feel of the original games, while simultaneously being able to represent each character in a 16-bit art style. While partaking in the laborious endeavour of remaking games, Merso would of course naturally begin to intensely scrutinise the original Turtles game more and more, like many of us taking note of small discrepancies between the titles and other Turtles lore. It was through this process of overanalyzing everything that he would make the extremely bold decision that rather than faithfully remastering the titles, he wanted to take the games in his own direction, attempting to create a gameplay experience that would surpass the originals. Merso states,
I wanted to have some flexibility in terms of enemy placement and behaviour, but I knew that if I were to take liberties, the game would stop being a faithful adaptation of the originals. So, to make it more fun for myself, development-wise, I decided to use the original games just as a template, while creating essentially a new game.
For this brave new approach, Merso would attempt to take inspiration not only from all of the classic Turtles games, but also further inspiration from the television animated series too. He would call on the help of huge Ninja Turtles fans including retro toy blogger Eric Zetsky and Suoden John Zelenak, the man with the world's largest Turtles toy collection. Both would assist with implementing accurate Turtles lore elements into the game, as well as helping with the title's story. While as mentioned earlier, many sprites for the game would be created by editing the original sprites in Photoshop. Many sprites for this game would need to be created differently though, since it encompasses a much larger portion of the Turtles universe of characters than any previous games. To help achieve this, Merso X would bring together a team of volunteers to assist with the now huge project, who would do things such as adapt sprites from non-related titles, such as Sunsoft's Batman, and alter them into Turtles characters. In the end, many sprites for the game would just end up needing to be drawn from scratch, taking inspiration from the animated show. This proved to be the most simplistic process, even when it came to creating sprites of Turtles Tournament Fighters characters for the game. So by June the 13th, 2019, the project was finally finished and released for free on Merso X's website, for the world to experience. On the site, the game is described as a free fan-made beat-em-up game based on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, an update and homage to the classic NES titles, with tons of characters playable for the first time. So now let us together explore the finished product that is available for all now to experience. The game features a very simplistic yet perfectly adequate introductory sequence that features the Turtles skateboarding through a wall with it then panned into the game's title. The game's main story mode, which is the first thing initially available to players, can be played up to 4 gamers cooperatively. Every player is automatically assigned a turtle each, however they can switch characters as they progress, which we shall get to talking about shortly. Upon starting out in this mode, players are made to play through a short tutorial section where, down in the sewers, Splinter explains to the Turtles how to use their arsenal of moves. Personally, I do not feel this section is necessary, as the game is simplistic enough that players should be able to work out the controls on their own. Especially when you consider that the kind of people who would likely want to play a game like this are veteran gamers who are highly experienced with both the Turtles and beat-em-ups anyway. But I guess at least players are 100% guaranteed to understand the controls from the get-go. Once through the tutorial, we get a humorous cutscene that is depicted in a faithful art style to the original games, where Splinter on a television set mentions that to commemorate 30 years of their rivalry, he has gone to the effort of kidnapping literally everyone the Turtles know, presenting the player with the goal of rescuing everyone, leading to a full-on Rescue-Palooza, hence the name of the game. Past this point, fans are greeted with a very familiar setting paired with equally familiar music. Players find themselves on an overworld map that has been based on the overworld found in the original 1989 NES game. In Rescue-Palooza, this features as a Mega Man style level select, allowing gamers to play the stages in any order they like, instantly bringing something brand new to the Turtles table. You will notice that when you select a stage, say April's building for example, you have the option to switch your character, playing as any turtle you like. This character selection, though, comes further into play as we progress through the game, which I shall lay more out on shortly. Once action commences, you will notice that this stage has been adapted straight out of the second Turtles NES game, however the building is not on fire this time around. Within the stage, familiar enemies return as well as new ones surfacing too. The stage, paired with the accompanying music, is dripped in nostalgia. Like in Turtles 2, at the end of the stage, April is trapped in the corner, but a mechanical drill soon comes up through the floor, leading to a boss fight. Rather than taking on just one boss, this time the Turtles take on both members of the gruesome twosome, Rocksteady and Bebop. However, in a convention typical of this fan game, after the fight the title subverts the audience's expectations. And not in a lame Last Jedi kind of way. What a horrible film that was. Basically, Shredder emerges from the drill, but instead of managing to capture April like he achieves in the original, this time round she manages to successfully fend the villain off. Because I guess she would have looked like a complete idiot if she managed to get caught in the same situation twice. This leads to one of Rescue-Palooza's coolest features of all, and that is that after players complete each stage in the game, new fighters are unlocked to players. In this level's instance, April herself, along with both Rocksteady and Bebop, become playable. The 3 new fighters players get for just beating this stage is only one example of the beyond generous amount of extra unlockables that this love letter to the Turtles offers. Upon selecting the next stage you want to play on the overworld map, each of the new fighters are instantly playable on the character select screen prior to action in each level unfolding. On this screen you will also note that every fighter has varied strengths and weaknesses, resulting in differences between them away from just aesthetics. In total, the game offers a huge variety of stages to play, and an incredible 60 different characters to both experiment with and play as. The scope on offer with this one is truly ridiculous in terms of different elements pulled in from across the Ninja Turtles universe. Encounters with enemies at times are even accompanied by voice clips, taken directly from the TV show, further emphasising that vintage Ninja Turtles feel. Throughout a playthrough you will notice so many references to the cartoon series, the original games and the toy line. So many that by this point it is difficult to even keep up with them all. That much Turtles lore was crammed into just this one fan game. In terms of the stages we get to experience, there are constant moments that will surprise you, with one of my favourite implementations being that Merso X managed to achieve the impressive feat of cohesively marrying up elements from the original 1989 Turtles side-scrolling platforming game with a range of Turtles NES beat-em-up elements. This means that on occasion we get to play through platforming style stages from the NES original, such as when we play through a sewer section of the game. But again, things happen that are completely different from the norm, such as when we get to take on the pizza monster at the end of the stage, a boss who certainly was not present in the 1989 console classic. The constant mixing up of familiar backdrops to create something new is one of the main appeals of this game to me. For example, one moment you may find yourself choosing to play the Key West stage from the Manhattan Project, discovering all sorts of new elements, to the next instance be playing the snow-covered park stage, which was previously exclusive to Turtles 2 Arcade for the Nintendo 8-bit platform. The game consistently nods to the source material it was gaming-wise based upon, but never stops introducing further elements celebrating the Turtles franchise. In terms of more elements that were made bespoke for this game, you can on occasion take out enemies who are riding vehicles, then take control of said vehicles yourself. Think of this as exactly the same as the rideable steeds mechanic that can be found in Golden Axe, a very similar feature that was added to this game by allowing players to ride these mechanical objects. In terms of combat, which is mentioned in the game's tutorial, I would say it is certainly stronger than any that can be found in the actual NES original games. However, it does not feel quite as fluid as the likes of Turtles in Time or the Hyperstone Heist. Characters can do most things you expect: walk, run, jump or attack. However, special moves are possible too with a simple tap of a button when the special move meter is filled up. These meters slowly refill after each use. In terms of the 60 playable characters, some are certainly more functional than others, and I would not call the lineup exactly balanced. However, personally, I find this modern obsession with balancing characters in games and making them all equal a bit over the top anyway. Life is not fair or balanced, so why should our games be that way? Give me some overpowered fighters and some interesting lame ducks any day, over a selection of fighters where every one of them is at an equal strength. Variety is the spice of life after all. Unless I guess if you live in China and have to live under the CCP. Between certain stages there are bonus sections to play through, which are introduced by Cuddly the Cowlick from the Turtles comic books, a trans-dimensional being who looks like a floating cowhead. These stages allow players to earn extra lives, improving the chances of beating the game. Completing story mode then unlocks arcade mode, a play mode that allows players to play in an arcade style session as any of the 60 fighters in the game, giving gamers plenty of replayability when it comes to this fan-made experience. With the title's extreme depth of characters and stages to play through, I could break down and overanalyze every detail in this video forever. However, I feel that Rescue-Palooza has enough warranted cameos and surprises that I will leave it up to you to explore many of them for yourself. After all, with this being a free-to-play game, all of you watching today have the opportunity to play this. The game would astound many when it first popped up online, including gaming media sources. So let's check out what they had to say. Retrospect.com stated that
the most outrageous thing of all is that Tmnt Rescue-Palooza is a well-conceived and made game that tugs heavily on all things nostalgic about the heroes in a half-shell, yet is completely free to boot. It's a passion project that's sure to make you relive and re-experience the joys of your youthful interests. The game is most definitely a love letter that is written both to and from the fans.
Kotaku would add,
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Rescue-Palooza has it all. Foot soldiers, the party wagon, lesser-known mutant antagonist ground-chucking dirtbag. And best of all, the fan-made PC game is free to download.
Den of Geek would praise the game, relating it to the market needing more quality beat-em-ups in 2019, stating,
There's never enough modern games in the genre on the market, and there's certainly never enough of them that recreate the surprising quality of so many great Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle beat-em-ups of the past. When it comes to Rescue-Palooza, the result is as impressive as it is welcome.
Across the board, Rescue-Palooza was welcomed and praised by fans and journalists alike. But perhaps without playing this yourself yet, you may be wondering how well this game holds up against the originals. Now, after playing all of them, both the original titles and this fan game, it is actually a rather tough question to answer, as although on the surface the game looks very similar, the changes make a big enough difference for Rescue-Palooza to feel a bit different from any Turtles games we have played before. I would say overall it feels completely different to the likes of the actual Turtles arcade games and what appeared on the Super Nintendo and Sega Mega Drive, with gameplay certainly being framed closer around the trilogy of Turtles games that appeared on the NES. With that said, that's still not completely true though, as while we get plenty of nods in the game to the 1989 original, I would go as far to say that they literally are just that, as the game has little mechanically in common with the original title. For example, the overworld map is just a level select in this instance, and we never need to cycle between characters mid-play to strategically make our way through the original game's difficult challenges. So I would say that gameplay wise, it certainly feels more like Turtles 2 and 3 on the NES rather than anything else. Which makes perfect sense as well, considering in its earliest development stages that those were the games that Merso X was trying to replicate. So the easiest way to describe this game is the greatest ever Turtles 2 and 3 on the NES style Turtles game, if that makes any sense. So to go back to my original question of whether or not that this is better than the originals, well, in my opinion, I think this game certainly tops Turtles 2 and 3 if you were going to play this one today. But the game is way too different to any of the other Turtles games to even really compare, even though there are plenty of nods to them throughout. So it's better than some of the originals, yet completely different to some of the other originals. Basically, it is the greatest NES style Turtles beat 'em up, even if the graphics have taken a 16-bit approach this time around. All in all, I am very happy that this amazing game exists, and I urge you all to try it out for yourselves. So, ladies and gentlemen, that was the mad story of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Rescue-Palooza. Let me know in the comment section if you have any experience with this game, and what you thought of it, or if this video was your introduction to the title. What have been your initial impressions? I'd be curious to hear all of your thoughts. If you enjoyed today's content, then please consider subscribing and checking out my playlist, looking at all of the classic Turtles games. Or if you fancy something different, I have lots of other playlists for you to check out too. Videos like this are made possible in part due to the fact that I can work full time on YouTube through the help of the people who back this channel on Patreon, receiving videos early, extra bonus content, names in the credits, and much more. Speaking of these people, additional thank yous go out to Sebastian Velez, Carl Johnson, The Murder of Crows, Heyo Paulo Lopez, Joseph Rasnick, Ben Harradine, Corey Imarsh Sr., Capcom vs SNK, BXL Gotham, Rowan Dinch, Evan Balder, Philip Nanth, Aswell Warakai, Keith Ferguson, Joaquin Varela, Michael Cullix, Ago, Jordan Durant, Angel Light 85, Alethea Swanson, Nick Daniels, Princess Zana, Glennie Glenn, Daniel Daly, Computer Man, House of Ted, Gary Pinkett, ECU Professor, Kid Anime, Justin Wang, Aaron McNamara, Hermes Gonzalez, Instant Gratification Monkey, Man Shovel, James Bishop, JB, Michael Hall, Wesley Sanghi, Wayne Kerr, Langston Miller, Noob, Brian Barry, Sarah Powell, Vlaming Renee, Marvin Araliga, Chris Cool, TOG Driver, Adrian Hannington, Bernard NG, Richard Stu Stewart, James McDonald, Dan Van Dammit, Lewis Viant, John Bates, David Barr, Chris Fisk, Mike Bruno, Rick67, Antonio Rodriguez, Craig Jenkins, Retroverse.com, Casey Wright, Synth Spaces, Zai, Andrew Bazansky, Gunther Hendricks, and all of my other wonderful patrons. Thank you so much.